Joining us now, great to welcome a woman who has succeeded in a couple of different fields. One in poker. She's a former world champion poker professional. Now has branched out into kind of a different field, although it's related, and that's the point of the book. It's called Thinking in Bets, Making Smarter Decisions When You Don't Have All the Facts. We're joined today by Annie Duke on the telephone. Annie, great to talk with you. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I had a chance to read through the book. Now, I don't know a lot about poker. I have watched you on TV and some of the poker competitions on the different channels, and even when I go out to Vegas, I like watching them play, but I just don't have the confidence to sit down there. So it takes a lot of guts to play poker, doesn't it?
Well, I appreciate it. It doesn't take me any guts anymore because I retired in 2012.
Right.
But and I do want to make clear, like obviously you know from the book that this book is it's not a poker book. You're not going to learn poker from reading this book, and you certainly don't ever have to have played a hand of poker in order to be able to get something out of it.
Right. Yeah. No, I should have mentioned that before, but it really has kind of combines what you did in poker with what people can do in their personal life or in their business life, kind of analyzing, not just making blind guesses or bets, but you can analyze it, and that's what you did in poker, and you kind of apply that to regular life, right?
Exactly. I mean, basically what I feel like is, and what I argue in the book is that we really want to act like when we're in life we're playing a game of chess. And you hear this all the time, right? You hear, oh, he's playing three-dimensional chess, and that's like the huge compliment. But chess isn't a whole lot like life, because in chess you can see where all the pieces are, so you don't really have any hidden information. And there's almost no luck. But that's actually a really different problem than the kind of decisions that we have to make in life, right? When we make decisions in life, there's lots and lots of information that we don't have and that we can't know, that are, making it so that our beliefs are always kind of under construction as opposed to 100% certain. And then whenever we make a prediction about the future, there's lots of different ways the future can turn out. You can make a prediction that's a decision that's 99% to work out, and you can still hit that 1% where it doesn't. And that doesn't really happen in chess. In chess, if you make bad decisions against your opponent, you lose, and if you make good decisions, you win. But in poker, I can have the best hand and make really good decisions, and on the turn of a card, I can lose. And I can make quite bad decisions with a very bad hand, and on the turn of the card, I can win. And that's actually a much better model for understanding what decision-making in life looks like, where there is lots of luck, and we don't have all the facts.
Yeah, I guess in poker, you as much information as you can get from the other cards on the table and looking at your opponents, I guess, looking for tells. You use all that. It's amazing to me that you don't have a lot of time in poker to make those decisions. You're making maybe 50 decisions within a minute to decide if you're going to bet or fold or what are you going to do. But there's a lot that goes into that. It's not just blind luck.
Well, the idea is to that point, to how do you make it so that you're really information hungry? Because your opponent's cards are face down to you. So how is it that you keep an open mind to what they have and start to really try to figure out, well, how do I start to narrow down what they have? How do I keep an open mind to different things they could be doing with different kinds of hands? And that's really the attitude that you want to have in life. You want to look at the beliefs that you have and say, how do I keep an open mind about these beliefs so that when new information that comes in that might really be relevant to me being able to better calibrate my belief, to make my belief more accurate, that I'm actually really, really open-minded to it. Because part of the problem that we find in life is that we have these beliefs and we generally think they're true. And once we generally have a belief that we think is true, what we'll do is we'll actually swat away information that disagrees with us, because if we find information that actually disagrees with our opinion, we'll consider it a threat because it makes us feel like we're wrong and we don't like that.
Right.
But if you approach life like a poker player where you recognize, you know what, I don't have all the information, and so my decisions, my beliefs rather, are always uncertain, and I can only ever be, somewhat sure of what I believe, and my decisions, therefore, my beliefs, therefore, are always under construction, and they're always kind of a work in progress. Then what happens is that you become really open-minded to information that might inform that belief and make it better. And you no longer swat away the people who disagree with you or view them as enemies. You invite them in to be your collaborators so that your beliefs can be better. And honestly, if you're not doing that at the poker table, you're going to lose. because you're not going to be as good a decision maker as the people who are getting a better idea of what your hand is than you are of theirs. And that's true for life. The people who are getting better at checking their beliefs against reality are going to do a lot better than if you're just trying to make sure that your beliefs are always right.
Yeah, good point. And you talk about in the book some different things I never heard of, which I thought was interesting, though, the Ulysses contract, different tools that you can do to make these kind of decisions. Can you explain that real quick? That was interesting to me, Ulysses contracts.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that one of the things we can do as decision makers is anticipate when in the future we might have a big problem with the decisions that we might make. And when we anticipate that we might have a problem with a decision we might make in the future, we can do certain things through this thing called a Ulysses contract in order to make it harder for us to act in a way that will hurt ourselves in the future. So just really quickly, Ulysses is the Roman name for Odysseus. And for anybody who's familiar with the Odyssey, it's the story of Odysseus. He's trying to sail home to Penelope. And one of the obstacles, he's got 3 obstacles that he has to pass, and one of the obstacles is the island of the Sirens. And the Sirens sing such an irresistible song that any man who hears it will steer his ship toward the shore, and the shore is very rocky, and the ship will break apart and everybody on the ship will die. And Odysseus knows that in the future he's going to come across this obstacle. So he's recognizing that there's going to be some sort of big pitfall, some sort of hazard in his way in the future. So he says, well, how do I make it so that I can stop myself from hurting myself when I hear the siren song? And what he does is he asks his crew to bind his hands to the mast so that even though Odysseus is hearing the song, he can't actually take his hands off of the mast in order to be able to steer toward the siren. So it's Odysseus is protecting his future self from harm through this contract, which we call a Ulysses contract after the Roman name for Odysseus. So I'll give you a super example that's not from Greek mythology. If you know that you're going to go out and have a few drinks with some friends at a bar, you can recognize that after you've had those drinks, that you might not be a very good decision maker about whether you should drive or not. And that because you've had a few drinks, future you has had a few drinks, maybe you need to protect yourself from harm. And so what you do is you take a ride-sharing service to the bar. It's a very simple example of a Ulysses contract, and you can really put them in place in any place where you see that you might have an obstacle in the future.
Yeah, kind of try and think ahead a couple of steps, like go back to the chess analogy, think 3 or 4 moves ahead. What I do now,
right.
How is that going to affect it? Yeah, it's a good term. I should mention Annie is also the founder of How I Decide. It's a great nonprofit. You create different curricula in the school system to help them learn how to make decisions. So I think that's important. There's a lot of things in the schools that should be taught that aren't. So that's one of them.
Well, I how do I think about the future and plan ahead? And I think that these are all really important skills, critical thinking skills, decision-making skills, and it's not really taught in schools at all. And I think it's particularly dire for underserved communities because I think the margin for error is just less when you're not starting from such an advantaged place. So that's why we founded, I'm a co-founder of How I Decide, in order to start bringing critical thinking and decision skills into schools.
Name of the book is called Thinking in Bets, Making Smarter Decisions When You Don't Have All the Facts. And we've been talking with Annie Duke. You said you retired about 4 or 5 years ago. Do you miss it at all? Do you watch it on TV, or have you completely moved on from poker?
Yeah, I pretty much moved on. I mean, I overlapped keynoting and speaking and consulting on decision making for about 10 years with my poker career. So I had this other career going in parallel that was pretty well formed by the time that I left poker in 2012. I very occasionally play to raise money for charity. It's a really wonderful way to raise money for charity. But other than that, no, you really won't see me at a poker table. And honestly, even when I was playing, I didn't watch it very much on TV because as a player, it's a very different thing to be able to see everybody's hole cards than when you're actually playing. So I wasn't a big poker watcher even when I was playing anyway. So I don't really play anymore.
Well, give out your website, Annie. People get more information about the book.
I'd love for people to visit AnnieDuke.com. You can find a book landing page there, figure out how to order the book from there. And also, I also have a weekly newsletter that goes out every Friday. It's archived on the site so you can look at it and see if you like the content. It's really looking at how you make better decisions, particularly with a focus on what sort of happened during the week in current events and trying to view it through that lens. But you can look at the archives to see if it's content that you like. And if you do, I'd love it if people would subscribe and they can have that newsletter hit their inboxes every Friday.
Great. Annie Duke, pleasure talking to you, and hopefully we can do it again. Thanks for being with us today.
Awesome. Thank you, Doug.
I'm Stan Brock. 30 years ago, I formed Remote Area Medical to help people overseas. But then we found generations of families in America isolated by poverty from the health care they need. Together, we can take dental, vision, and medical help to 1 million adults and their kids, right here at home in the United States of America.
If you'd like to order the book we're talking about, please go to DougMilesMedia.com and enter the author's name in the Amazon search box. Thank you for listening. Please come back soon for more conversations here at DougMilesMedia.com. This has been a presentation of Doug Miles Media, all rights reserved. You can listen to or download previous programs at iTunes, Stitcher.com, or DougMilesMedia.com.